Good day, Junior Techies. I'm Mrs. Brimacombe. We are now going to look at Budget Activity 4. Question 4.1. Complete the following statement. The main reason why trading stock deficit would not appear in the cash budget because it is a non-cash item. Remember that trading stock deficit is an expense which will appear in your projected income statement. But because it's a non-cash item, it will not appear in the cash budget. Question 4.2. Complete the debtors collection schedule. Now, if we look at our workings, they provided us with the credit sales. April is blank because we need to calculate the credit sales for April. But when we look now at debtors pay according to the following trend. 55% 30 days after the sale, which means that it's the month after we sold goods on credit. So if we sold goods on credit in January, we expect 55% to be collected in February. 25% 60 days after sale, 18% 90 days after sale. The rest is written off as irrecoverable. So what is the rest? If you take 100, because that is the credit sales is equal to 100%, minus 55, minus 25, minus 18, it means 2% will be written off as bad debts. Now we can complete the percentages for the rest of the debtors collection schedule. And this will help us now to complete the debtors collection schedule for April and May. So if we look at January, we sold goods for 328,000. We expect 18% to be collected in April. 2% will be written off as bad debts. It does not appear in your debtors collection schedule. Bad debts is a non-cash item, so it will appear in your projected income statement. From the February credit sales, we expect for 25% to be collected in April and 18% to be collected in May. From our March credit sales, we expect 55% to be collected in April. But now you need to remember, we first need to calculate 55%. Of that, we're only going to collect 97.5% of the total outstanding debt because we provide our debtors with 2.5% discount for prompt payment. So the amount that we expect to collect from our debtors is 158,750. Then we expect 25% to be collected in May from the March credit sales. Now, before we can work out April, we first need to find out what is the credit sales. So to find out the credit sales, they provided us, as part of question 4.6, they provided us with the total sales that was budgeted for March. Now, why would I be looking at March if we are busy with April? I want to find out what is the percentage that is sold on credit and then what is the percentage cash. So if we've got the total sales and we use the figures now for March and we take the credit sales divided by the total sales times 100, it means that the percentage is 40% which is sold on credit. That means 60% is cash, but I don't need that figure now. All I need is the credit sales, the percentage. Because once I've got the percentage, 40%, then I can use now the cash budget, cash sales for April to find out what is the credit sales. we want to calculate 40, which is equal to the credit sales, divided by 60, and that equals 264,000. Once we've got the total credit sales for April, we can now calculate what do we expect to collect in May. But a reminder, you first need to calculate the 55%. And of that, we expect 97.5% of the amount to be collected. For May, there will be no calculation. Question 4.3, calculate the total discount allowed during the budget period. Reminder, the budget period is April and May, so we need to look for a 55%. So the first part of the calculation, from the March credit sales, we expect 55% to be collected in April, and of that, those debtors will receive a 2.5% discount. Then we need to look at, from the April credit sales, we expect 55% to be collected, and of that, 2.5% discount will be allowed. So the total discount allowed is 4,070 plus 3,650. And that equals 7,700 for the budget period. Question 4.4. Calculate the following missing amounts indicated by 1 to number 7 in a cash budget for April and May 2022. So in information A, they provided you with an extract with the cash budget for April and May, and we need to find all of those missing figures. Question 1. Calculate the cash sales in May. Now we have already calculated the percentage credit sales, and we calculated to be 40%. This means that cash sales is equal to 60%, and we need to calculate the cash sales in May, which means we're going to take the credit sales in May and we're going to say times 60 divided by 40. There is an alternative. And this is why it's so important to familiarize yourself with the question before you start it. Read the information carefully. If you look at additional information, the first bullet, delivery cost is budgeted at 8% of sales. This means that if we now look at April and in May and we go down to the delivery cost of customers or to customers, they provided to you the figures for both April and May. So we can use that to find out the total sales. We need to calculate the cash sales in May. So this means that we're going to use the figures of May. Delivery cost is budgeted at 8%. So if you take 49,920 and you times it by 100 divided by 8, it will provide you with the total sales. My total sales minus the credit sales will equal the cash sales. So there's an alternative which you could have used to calculate the cash sales in May. Number 2, the commission income in May. The commission income is expected to decrease by 20%. So we now need to calculate the commission income for May. So to calculate this, for April, it is equal to 100%. Minus a 20% decrease means to calculate May, we're going to take 45,000 times 80%, and that equals my commission income for May. Calculating now the cash purchases in April and the payment to creditors. If you look at the information given to you, purchases and payment to creditors, 85% of stock is purchased on credit. Stock sold is replaced in the month of sale creditors are paid 1 month after the purchase month. So this means that if I want to calculate the cash purchases in April, I'm going to use now the payment to creditors in May. Why? Based on payments to creditors, creditors are paid 1 month after the purchase month, which means that if we purchase in April, we would pay our creditors in May. And we know that 85% of the stock is purchased on credit. 100 minus 85 means then 15% of the stock is purchased cash. So my calculation would then be 280,500 times 15 divided by 85. And that equals the cash purchases in April. Now, looking at the payment to creditors. If we look now at the payment to creditors, if we paid our suppliers in April, it means that we would have bought the goods in March because creditors are paid 1 month after the purchase month. So first, we need to find out what was the total purchase price, which is essentially our cost of sales. Because stock sold is replaced in the month of sale, which means that we need to find out our cost of sales. If you look at the information which was given to you, you would notice nowhere that they provide you with a markup percentage. So we need to find out the cost of sales so that we can find out what is the markup percentage. So we start off with the payment to creditors in May. And we're now going to say times 100 divided by 85. And that equals the total purchase price, which is your cost of sales. Next, we're going to work out the total sales. So the total sales for that month is 396,000 plus 264,000. Again, we're using the payment to creditors in May to find out the total purchases in April because our suppliers is paid 1 month after the purchase. So now we can use the total sales. We can calculate it by taking the cash sales plus the credit sales, so that we can work out the markup percentage. Selling price minus cost divided by cost times 100 equals the markup percentage. A reminder, they provided us with the total sales of March. This means we can now calculate the cost of sales by taking sales times 100 divided by 200 equals my cost of sales. 85% of stock is purchased on credit, which means that is the payment to our suppliers in April. So there's a lot of things involved here. So first of all, we needed to calculate the cost of sales. To calculate the cost of sales, we needed to use the payment to creditors in May, so that we can find out the cost of sales of April. Secondly, we calculated the total sales. Third step, calculate the markup percentage because it wasn't given to you, so that you can calculate the cost of sales for March. And 85% of that is stock purchased on credit, which will be paid 1 month after the purchase month. Number 5, repairs on vehicles. The additional information, repairs to vehicles is expected to increase by 3% from 1 May. So they provided you with the repairs on vehicles for May. This is after the expected increase, and we now need to calculate the amount for April. So to calculate that, we are going to say May 21,218 times 100 divided by 103, and that equals the repairs on vehicles for April. Number 6, bank balance in the beginning of the month. So to calculate the bank balance in the beginning of the month, we need to look at April. There was a cash surplus. How do I know it's a surplus? There's no brackets of 48,000 and our end balance is 68,000, which means that the balance in the beginning was 20,000. A reminder, your closing balance of April will be my opening balance in May. Now the next one, number 7, is calculate the cash surplus or deficit. So if I look now what is happening in May, we had a bank balance in the beginning of the month of 68,000. We ended up with a negative amount, an unfavorable balance of 23,000. So this means to find out what is the cash surplus or deficit, I need to add those two totals, and that will mean we had a deficit in May. A deficit means that our payments exceeded our receipts. Question 4.5. Refer to information A. Calculate the percentage increase in rent, and the owner is considering buying his own premises. What would the owner need to consider in the cash budget during June? So if we look now at the cash budget, the payments, the rent expense, it increased from 18,000 to 19,800. So to find out the percentage, take 19,800 minus 18,000 divided by 18,000 times 100. It means that the rent increased with 10%. So if the owner is now considering to buy his own property, he needs to include the following into his cash budget for June. If you're buying your own property, there's always the option that we can rent out the areas or some of the premises which we are not using. And that means that we can generate income from that, which is called rent income. Then he needs to consider that there would be rates and taxes that will need to be paid, repairs on the building, insurance on property, the repayment of loan, which will include the capital amount plus interest. Question 4.6. The budgeted and actual figures for March are provided. The owner is concerned about the discrepancies between the actual and budgeted amounts. Comment on the control over the expenses. Quote figures. Give advice regarding each item. The first item that we are going to look at is our advertising. So if we're looking at advertising, what happened to our advertising? It increased by 4,440. Now reminder, advertising has an impact on your sales. And if we're looking at our sales, it decreased by 148,000. So we spent more on advertising, but it didn't have the desired effect on our sales because our actual sales was less. So when we're commenting now and we're quoting our figures, we start off by saying that we've overspent by 4,440. That is by 12%. And to get that 12%, take 41,440 minus 37,000 divided by 37,000. If we look at our sales, it decreased by 148,000, which is a 20% decrease. So the sales decreased by 148,000, yet our advertising cost increased by 12%. So advice which we can give is that we need to relook at the way in which we advertise. how we actually do our advertising. As in this case, it was ineffective. The actual sales were less than budgeted. Identify the target market and ensure that advertising is done to that specific target market. Our next expense is delivery cost to customers. So looking at our delivery cost to customers and our sales. Our sales decreased. We've established that now. It decreased by 20%. Our delivery cost to customers decreased by 8,288. So we did spend less because our sales were less. If we calculate now the percentage by how much it decreased, if you take 59,200 minus 50,912 divided by 59,200, it equals 14%. So this is our first comment that we can write. If we now look at what actually happened, remember the additional information. Delivery cost is budgeted at 8% of sales. This means if our sales were 592,000, our actual sales, and we times that by 8%, it means that we should have spent 47,316. But yet we spent 3,552 more. If you look at your actual figures as well, and we take the 50,912 and we divide it by 592,000, it equals 8.6%, which is more than what we actually budgeting. If we just look at the delivery cost, we spent 3,552 more. It means that is 7.5% more than what we actually should have. This is clear that although the delivery cost to customers decreased, we did spend less. It wasn't well controlled. Delivery cost is budgeted at 8% of the total sales. The total sales decreased by 20%. They should have spent 47,360 on the actual sales. Instead, they spent 50,912, which is 7.5% more than what they should have. So this is important to take note of. Common mistake. We only look at the delivery cost and we identify, but it decreased. Therefore, we manage our expense well. Be careful of that. So advice that we can provide, install a tracking device to see if the driver is using the vehicle for private affairs. The next expense that we're looking at is repairs to vehicles. So if we look at repairs to vehicles, or on vehicles. We budgeted 20,000, but actually we spent nothing. Now that is not a good thing. Our sales were less. It means that there were less deliveries done to customers during the month. So why didn't this happen now? So when we're commenting, make sure that you quote your figures. We budgeted 20,000 and we spent nothing. This is not well managed. With sales down, there should have been less deliveries to the customers, so there's no excuse for repairs not being done. Advice: ensure proper maintenance is done on delivery vehicles. Outsource deliveries to customers if vehicles go in for repairs, that the business do not end up losing customers. If the business has more than one vehicle, should plan that repairs are done at least once a year. If a business neglects the repairs and maintenance, it could end up costing the business more money to get that vehicle fixed, and the longer it's in for repairs, the less it can deliver to customers to generate an income. Question 4.7, refer to information A. The workers are dissatisfied with the increase they are going to receive in May. They have not received a salary increase the past 2 years and had to work part-time due to COVID. They indicated that they would strike if the owner does not pay attention to their grievances as the cost of living increased substantially. Give a reason with figures that the owner can use to justify the increase he granted to the workers in May 2022, and then give a reason with figures why the employees can feel justified in their grievances. So if we look now at the information presented, if we look at salary manager, he received an increase of 3,600. The salary of the workers were 3,000. If we look at percentages, the salary of the workers, they've only received a 5% increase. So it's 3,000 divided by 60,000 times 100. Whereas the manager, if you take 3,600 divided by 50,000 times 100, received a 12% increase. Each worker earned 10,000 before the increase, and after the increase will receive 10,500. So it's only a 500 Rand increase per worker. Now if you compare that to the manager, he got 3,600. So no wonder these employees are upset. But if we look now at everything else and what is happening, the business expect a cash deficit of 91,000 in May. Remember, this is what we calculated earlier. The bank balance at the end of the month is negative 23,000. So they went from having money in their account with having no money in their account and actually owing the bank money. This is what they expect is going to happen. If we look at sales and what has been happening with our sales, and this is now what I've calculated. They've provided you with the credit sales. If we look at the total sales each month, you can see that from January up to May, we expect every single month that our sales is going to decrease. If we look at March specifically, we budgeted 740,000, but the actual was 20% less. So all of this is a reason that the owner can feel justified in his decision. But hey, actually, I cannot afford to give them more than 5%. So in your answer, make sure that you mention the business will experience cash flow problems from June. The business have a deficit of 91,000 and a negative bank balance of 23,000. The expected sales are decreasing monthly. The actual sales were 20% less than budgeted during March. The workers will receive a 5% increase, which the owner can feel is in line with the inflation rate. Now, if we look at give a reason with figures why the employees can feel they are justified in their grievances, as mentioned before, the manager can receive a 12% increase, but yet the workers only received 5%. So if you look at the salary of the manager, it increased by 3,600. The workers only received 500 per employee, which is 3,100 less than the manager. Again, looking at these questions, with control over our expenses, with 4.7, whatever comment that you are writing or reasons that you are given, make sure that you give figures with that. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to look at activity 5. I want to leave you with this quote. Study like there's no tomorrow, because if you keep putting off your studies for tomorrow, you'll probably be too late. Have a wonderful day.